If you are new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show with your hosts, Joey and Holly Baird.
We always like making things in our homes that are beneficial to us, that are much more cost-effective than buying it at the store. And kombucha is one of those items. Now, Holly, you know a lot about kombucha. So first of all, for people who have heard the term, seen the bottles at the store, what is kombucha, number one?
So kombucha is basically a slightly fermented tea. So it's not fermented enough where it has like a high alcohol content, but it's fermented enough where it becomes beneficial to you.
Okay.
So I guess people commonly fermented things that we eat are things like yogurt, sauerkraut, things like that. So this is like that.
It's not a pickled type of thing.
No, it's not pickled. So.
So what is the basis of a kombucha here?
So,
or how do we? What is the beneficial aspect of drinking kombucha, and how much should one drink in order to get that benefit in their body?
Well, if you've never had kombucha, you want to start kind of small.
Okay.
If you don't eat a lot of fermented foods, or maybe a lot of things that have that fermented, it's called lactic acid in it, you might have some stomach upset and things like that. So you want to start a little small, and that way you will have you'll be able to adjust. So you definitely don't want to go to the store and buy a gallon of kombucha and down it in one day.
Okay.
You maybe like half a cup, a day.
Gradually work your system up to that.
But it's very beneficial because it has that bacteria that's good for your gut health. And a lot of us eat, maybe not super healthy. It's good for your gut health. It's good for your immune system. It's just beneficial overall for your body.
Okay.
So that's why you want to eat
And there's a lot of different, I guess we'd call flavors.
Right.
Of kombucha?
So kombucha is made with tea, and it's also made with something called a SCOBY.
Okay.
And a SCOBY is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So SCOBY is an acronym for that, and that's what it is. It's a living home for the bacteria and yeast to transition the tea into the kombucha.
So we can make this at home, but we have to have the SCOBY as the groundwork in order to create the kombucha, whether it's a gallon or 2 gallons or 3, whatever we're making, correct?
Right. So basically, you can buy a SCOBY from online. You can buy. Maybe you have a friend who has one, because as the more kombucha you make, that SCOBY kind of grows, multiplies. It will grow. Basically, it picks up the fermentation process, and it continues.
It's a living
grow.
organism.
It is living, yeah.
And it looks, for the uncommon eye, it looks very disgusting.
It looks kind of gross. It looks like a big flat piece of snot.
Yeah,
but
that's essentially, and it's kind of got a rubbery, rubbery consistency to it.
Yeah. So,
and people will make these specifically and ship them out, and you can also store them what is called SCOBY hotels in jars, and you keep this thing alive by feeding it sugars, essentially, bacteria for it to break down.
And it's good bacteria. It's
right.
Beneficial bacteria. Some people make their own SCOBYs by fermenting the tea, and then it creates its own SCOBY. That's something that if you're new to fermentation or making your own kombucha might be a little bit challenging, so I would suggest just getting a SCOBY yourself.
Okay, so we start with the SCOBY, and you mentioned tea.
So
this is the active ingredient?
Right, tea is the active ingredient. So you're going to take black tea. It's best to start with black tea.
Only black tea. We can't use green
tea.
To start. Okay, okay.
You start with black tea, and it's a sweet tea, so it has some sugar in it. And it's going to be nice and sweet. And you don't want to put your SCOBY in there when it's hot. You let it go to room temperature, and then you
once we get the ingredients, the SCOBY, the black tea, we put it in has to be glass jar.
Right, you do a glass jar. So whether it be
with the lid off, but with a breathable material on top of it.
Put cheesecloth, like an old sock with a hole in it, something like that. It has to be clean.
A coffee filter.
Okay. Yeah, something like that where it's like porous, but not like enough where stuff can get in there.
So once and there's plenty of recipes online, and we're doing this ourselves. We've got a large glass, a 2-gallon glass jar with a nozzle on the bottom of it where we can extract. It's called continuous kombucha. We extract 1 gallon out. We put 1 gallon of black tea in. It creates and allows the kombucha to form and develop much, much quicker than in a smaller batch.
Right. So that's the first process of making your kombucha. And then if you want to make it flavored, people will add things like berries or fruit, and then do what's called a second fermentation, where it adds that flavor.
Not required.
Not required, but that's like you'll see like videos on YouTube and stuff like that where people do a second fermentation to give it some flavor.
So now that we've got this, what is the time period? Okay, I've got all my ingredients. I've put it all in the jar. What's the time period and what activities do I have to do to that kombucha? Do I just put it in the corner and let it sit and forget about it for X amount of days or weeks?
It really just depends on the temperature in your home. It can take anywhere from a couple days to a week, maybe longer. But you'll know because it does this fermentation. It gets the smell, the fermentation smell.
Not a nasty
gross
smell. Okay.
No, it's just slightly fermented. A lot of times if you buy a SCOBY, it'll come with some pH test strips. You can test the acidity until you get used to knowing what that acidity level should be.
And there's a specific range in which you need that to be in order to classify as kombucha.
Right.
So we're doing it on what I would say a large batch, a large 2 gallons. Can you do this on a smaller level, or do you have to go large in order for this to work correctly?
No, when I've done it in a half-gallon or a quart-sized jar. So you don't have to do large. You can start small, see how it works out for you, see how you like it. It's not something that you can just do every once in a while. It kind of becomes a continual process for a lot of people. You can, like Joey said, make it into a SCOBY hotel and store your SCOBY that way, but if you get too big of a SCOBY or too much, you can give it to friends and family, or you can throw it in your compost.
And there's different ways of breaking that SCOBY apart to divide it to. Okay, so we've got. If we don't want to go purchase a SCOBY, I have heard that you can go to the store and get raw kombucha that's got what is called a mother in it, and you can start developing a SCOBY in that. That takes longer than actually buying a large SCOBY that's pretty much ready to be inserted into your batch making procedure.
Right. So you can do that, and there's a lot of ways to learn how to do that. There's videos online, there's Facebook groups, things like that. I've never attempted it, but it's definitely an option. But that you would start small.
Right, start small, and because that mother, it's just like raw cider vinegar. There's that item floating in the liquid, and that is actually the basis of what you need in order for this to, whether if you're making vinegar or you're making kombucha, that's that whole, if you don't have that, you don't have the kombucha.
Right.
Without it. So when it comes to, let's talk about the second fermentation if we want to do that. We start with the large jug.
So once that's fermented, then you would take an individual bottle, a glass bottle.
Mason jar? Or does it have to be a smaller concentrated unit?
Well, when you open it, it might be difficult to open it because it builds up a lot of pressure.
Okay.
So like something like...
Almost like a carbonation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of people will do it in those like bottles that have the little pop tops.
Okay.
With a rubber stopper that you can get. I don't know. I've seen them anywhere from like Target to World Market, but you do it in there. And a lot of times you have to put it in a bowl or something, and then people put like a plastic bag over top to open it, so the fizz or the fizz doesn't like shoot out.
So if we do not do the second fermentation, not required, what kind of flavor are we looking at as
It's just like a sweet tea flavor.
With a slight
fermentation,
right.
Acidic taste to it. Yeah.
Okay, and it's not alcohol, like a beer.
No.
There is a very minute amount of alcohol in it. And this was a thing several years ago that the grocery stores and the government was all like, we can't sell this because...
They weren't sure where to put it. They weren't sure to put it in the, like near where the yogurt is kept, or to put it into like the liquor department.
And we now know that it's in the everyday anybody can drink it aisle of the grocery store because
people give it to their kids all the time. There's just a negligible effect of alcohol. It's not going to be something where your children...
A beneficial level of bacteria and alcohol in it to build your gut immune system, essentially what's happening.
Yeah, your children aren't going to be, inebriated. It's just of where it's beneficial to you.
So if you've never had kombucha, number one, go to the store and get a bottle. It can be $2 to $3, but number one, find out if you even like this stuff. Because there's no sense of going through all the procedures and going, I'm making kombucha, and then you find out it's not what you thought it was or might be. And sometimes, and many of you know this, if it's bad, if it tastes bad, it's probably good for you. With medicine or with the plants, or if you're eating natural wild edibles, some of these things taste horrible, but they have such great health benefits for our bodies.
Like I eat plain yogurt,
right?
And a lot of people can't stand that because they say it's sour, but you become adjusted to it after a while.
It's not French fries and potato chips.
No,
what we're accustomed to. Thank you for checking out the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener radio show. For more, go to the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com for full length in-studio video and podcast replay of Season 1. Season 2 underway and added weekly. Tweet us at TWVG Show or hashtag TWVG to be part of the program.